Welcome, everyone, to episode 21 of Science, Planets, and Stellar Rhythms. My name is Erik Roth, your host and shamanic astrologer. Today, we're going to talk about the annular solar eclipse coming up on June 10, 2021. This is part of an overall eclipse season that is taking place. This marks the ending point of this upcoming eclipse. This started off with a total lunar eclipse that was on May 26th, visible here in North America and across the Pacific and into East Asia as well. So we'll talk about where we can see this eclipse, the astrological implications, what this means, and what is an annular solar eclipse as opposed to a total solar eclipse. Okay, let's go in and talk about and honor, and acknowledge and invoke in the stars, the planets, and all our relations and creation. We are here as part of the cosmic creation. All our ancestors and descendants, families, friends, all of our allies, Great Spirit, and all that has come into this world with us today, all that has been, and all that is yet to come. This is all that we are, feeling we're part of this. And in this time, we're connecting to the upcoming eclipse and its appearance in the sky as a regular basis. And we're going to focus in on this particular one. Okay, so first off, we'd like to get into the visibility of the annular solar eclipse on June 10th. You can see by this map, just give you a general idea of the area or the populations that will be able to see or witness this. The darker shade is where the center line takes place, where the annular portion of the eclipse is taking place. And the rest of this is all the other shades that are darker than white will be able to see a partial annular eclipse. So because this takes place near the solstice, this is part of the sun is pretty far north of the ecliptic itself. Not north of the ecliptic, sorry, north of the, north of where it would normally be at the equinoxes. So the ecliptic itself is arched more northerly on the planet, whereas at the time of December solstice, it's more southerly. So that's why we have this kind of interesting curve that's going on. It's a much more polar central eclipse that's taking place on June 10th. Here's a better look where most people will be able to see a partial eclipse. If you live, most people in Canada, in the northern part of Alaska, the eastern and the northern part of the upper Midwest will be able to see a partial eclipse. And then again, the full eclipse will be in near Hudson Bay and just to the south of it, near up to Lake Superior and the U.S. border, and then across up north across the Greenland and into eastern Russia. This is a picture that was taken by on earthsky.org. The previous one was on timeanddate.com. Both of these are great resources for looking up and connecting to eclipses, past, present, and future. And they usually have articles, especially earthsky.org has great articles about eclipses and other celestial phenomena, along with stars and planets and so forth. So this full annular solar eclipse, again, if you're living in, I know most of these people that watch this will be in North America, but these eclipses can happen anywhere on the planet. So eventually, the place in which you live, eventually there'll be an eclipse. It may not be in your lifetime, but eventually it'll go over that particular landmass. So it rotates over long periods of time. Okay, so what is it about an annular solar eclipse as well as a total? So if we look at this picture on the right side that I got from earthsky.org, again, a great resource to check out. There's the one on the left. This is where we see there's the total solar eclipse. This is A, symbolized by A here. We're in the direct line of the what is called the umbra, the moon's umbra. But to the right of this is how an annular eclipse shows up. The moon is farther away from being able to cast a full shadow, complete shadow onto the earth. And so you get what is called B. And then outside of that, you get C. So you get the partial eclipse. So there, we could see that there's a ring of fire, a ring of the sun in B. So that's what we're going to be seeing. It's a almost a 4-minute at its maximum totality or annular totality. The entire partial to total to partial. In some places, it's going to be about 100 minutes. And in parts of Europe, it could be over 2 hours long just because of that whole, this is part of the reason why, you know, it's just another more proof that a person can need that the earth is a sphere and not flat. So because of that area where it all comes together and we're seeing the rotation up into the upper northern hemisphere, and why you get more of the shadow effect up there during this time of year. So again, the ring of fire, you know, this is going to be, I think, a really powerful event. Of course, there will be other eclipses, but each eclipse has its own unique imprint or stamp, if you will, that it leaves from an astrological perspective. So this eclipse takes place in the sign of Gemini. And it's essentially a new moon. It's just that the moon is passing directly in front of the sun, and that's why we get that eclipse. So this eclipse will take place between the horns of the Great Bull of Heaven, the constellation that astronomers still call Taurus. And I'll be showing a night sky, a picture that shows where this is in the night sky. The eclipse is only 1 degree from Mercury retrograde. And if you're following this channel and you follow other astrologers, you know that Mercury retrograde started to take place on May 29th, 2021 in the sign of Gemini. And so at this time, Mercury will only be 1 degree away. So this Mercury will be adding some level of influence into the experience of the eclipse. Now, Mercury wouldn't be visible if someone is visiting that area or living in that area and they're seeing this eclipse, you won't be able to see Mercury. It'll be way too dim and way overshadowed or outshined by the sun, way too close to the sun to be able to see even in this. So this astrologically can be likened to creating a dynamic of a time outside of time and out of bounds from regimented or orthodox thinking. This is in a sense a portal into the extreme creative mind of play, communication, and wild imagination. Now, there's a Sabian symbol I'm going to talk about here as well that adds to this experience. Again, a lot of this has to do with really the imaginative or creative portions of one's mind. This is what it's really activating. And it's not that we have to completely suspend our sense of logic, but it helps to let go of logic and let go of specific purpose and just be able to experience the imagination and be able to experience the creative process. Let's say you've got maybe some paper in front of you or a canvas, or maybe you want to create a design on the ground with rocks. Well, maybe you don't really have anything in mind, and you just go in to approach it, and you spontaneous with it. You approach it from a sense of like intuition and sort of mental play. Well, it comes out, whatever comes out in that moment. And that's kind of what I'm talking about here. There doesn't have to be some concerted planning well ahead of time, and you've got to have all the right particular things in front of you, and spending weeks in order to prepare or months to prepare. This is not about preparation. This is about like going for it in the spur of the moment. And this is where Gemini can show up in that fashion and help us reach into that space for ourselves. This isn't the time to say, especially with Mercury retrograde, to plan one's necessarily long-term future, but it can be somewhere where you can plant the seeds to grow into something. Maybe just to connect into something a much longer term, but not really knowing or rigidly needing to have something happen in a particular way. So this is that time where you can connect into that. That doesn't mean that, oh my God, I'm going to be flying across the country that day or across the ocean or whatever it might be and plan big in a long trip. Doesn't mean things are going to go absolutely bonkers or wrong. It just means you got to allow for certain communication challenges that can show up during this eclipse, which can happen. I mean, I just even recording this video, I encountered a little technical glitches before I was able to get into this, and still having a slight glitch here and there with it. So I'm just kind of allowing for that to happen during this time with Mercury retrograde. And I want to talk about the Lakota sacred of Hoop of Stars, which is where that eclipse is taking place. So let's look at the Sabian symbol first, Gemini 21. So for those of you that don't know what a Sabian symbol is, these are symbols that were brought forth, many decades ago. I think it was in the late part of the 19th century, early part of the 20th century. It started to be used, and there are two people that I connect to with Sabian symbols. One is astrologer Dane Rudhyar, Rudhyar, and then also Linda Hill, which is who I'm quoting in this one. And so each person can tune into that in their own way, but it symbolizes something. Each degree on the zodiac symbolizes something, 360 degrees. So in this case, this is Gemini 21. They're numbered 1 through 30 instead of 0 through 29. Like the astrological degrees are 0 through 29, but the Sabian symbols are 1 through 30. So we have to add 1 when we look at the closest degree that it's at. So that's how it gets to Gemini 21. All right, so the symbol here is a tumultuous labor demonstration. And according to Linda Hill, an astrologer, in her book, The Sabian Oracle, the key words for this, or key terms maybe, can be rephrased, is pushing for change to the status quo, feeling hard done by or taken advantage of, seeking a better share of the profits, protest about having too much to do, and standing up for yourself. So in this, really, I think this is pretty amazing that this is actually coming down right at this time. And at least here in the United States, I'm imagining also other countries as well are having some of this, certainly with what's happened with certain autocratic takeovers or leaders that have shown up in the world more in the last several years. Here in the US, we're still feeling the powerful effects of the pandemic and all the fallout from that, as well as the social unrest and economic unrest and disruption, as well as other things that have been interrupted and opened up. And we're now able to fully see much more clearly our shadow here in the US, much more clearly the toxic relationship that we've had at times, and especially with race relations and politics and so forth. This is the time to really speak truth here, to speak the truth, not just, certainly with Gemini, it can be kind of contrarian kind of energy, but it's in what was the contrarian and the fool and the jester. They were actually the ones that were the truth tellers through story and song and poem to the king. And they would blend in stories in order to share a particular certain kind of wisdom that would be shared. And this is, one might even say that this could even be a more firm way of bringing that voice out. And if we combine that with the imagination and the creativity from the previous slide, we can see that maybe we can apply our creative, imaginative area maybe to create song and story through being able to share the truth, through to be able to be that bard or that minstrel or that coyote that shares that other layer that can't be seen necessarily unless we go out of bounds to see it. Go outside the color outside the lines, as you did in kindergarten, like no color outside the lines. Okay, well, this is a time to maybe do that. There's a purpose, a certain kind of element that can be had, and things that can be activated that wouldn't necessarily be activated if we would just connected only within the lines themselves. So it's speaking the truth and standing up for who you are, especially if it's in a healthy level, and not ignoring all that's around us, and just being there in that space. So this is what this symbolizes, and I think this is a very appropriate, certainly in the time in which we're living here. Okay, so there's also an effect on the US chart, and something that I started to get back to here from what Daniel Giamaro has been sharing in his blogs and ramblings and ruminations. And he talks about here about the syzygy that is to be expected with a total solar eclipse, but annular solar eclipse, he calls them underrated. And I have never seen one particularly in person. I've seen the other kinds of eclipses, but this kind I have not seen. But we'll get a chance more so in the United States when we get to in 2 years in 2023. And in fact, I think it's will also be visible for part of, I think, Mexico and south of there as well. But this is a sort of a part 2 of what took place a couple of weeks ago, or from June 10th, 2 weeks ago. So at this recording, this was just last week when we had the total lunar eclipse. So this definitely is connected into the US chart here. You've got the sun and moon and Mercury all between 19 and 20 degrees there. It very deeply connected to the natal sign of the US's chart of Mars at 21 degrees. So for a nation, this would be the sort of the masculine image that this nation has, a connection to really the jester, the fool, the minstrel, there's sort of a strong contrarian energy that comes out through the masculine. And it could be in a sense that, not taking things seriously, goofing off too much, sort of in the shadow of that. Or it could be to kind of loosen up and play and not be so serious because we've taken things too seriously. So this could be could be a part of this sort of a layer in here where, at least in this country, this could allow us, more permission to actually be more of a free electron, have freedom within ourselves, and give ourselves permission to play more. We're nearing at least here in the United States, there's a greater uplifting of restrictions and, sort of letting go of, in certain circles, masks and the social distancing. And this is, progressing well in that department, and hopefully this continues as we get deeper into the year. But we're seeing a new energy, a new vibe in the air. But we're still cleaning up and working on the mess that was created over the last several years, and especially in 2020. So it's not a complete full night and day, but it is a sort of an in-between zone at this great turning of the ages. So there's still a lot of work to do, but during this time, maybe how we can participate in our lives is maybe giving ourselves permission once in a while to just relax and have fun and play games and begin to socialize more out there if we're able to. So this is what this represents. Now, I will also share, it's really interesting, it continues to catch my attention here, is that the US is having what is called the Neptune opposition. That means Neptune is now and has been opposite the US natal Neptune. So there's other things going on, but it's something I wanted to bring up because it's adding to the confusion out there in the world, and in particular because the US's imprint on the world, and all the bickering that's been going on, the arguments and then even the violence and the confusion and the distortion and the unreality, and sort of the bending of reality itself. This can be likened in part to this Neptune opposition. And again, this cycle I probably do maybe a full episode specifically on the US chart cycles at a later time as we get a little deeper into summer. But this is one I wanted people to be aware of because it's you know, is it just me or is the world gone nuts? Well, there's a lot of things that contribute to this, but this is one of the more powerful ones that is contributing to this right now. This Neptune opposite Neptune. And so it's like think of Neptune as an agent that dissolves reality and is there to help bring us, you know, spirit into our dimensional reality on some level, but it may not be entirely tangible for ourselves. And so having this eclipse in Gemini kind of takes us out of bounds, and it squares that Neptune of the US as well as the transiting Neptune. So we're seeing that in the Pisces Virgo square to the natal Mars position of the US. And so this could create some really, you know, strange occurrences. And, you know, we could be looking at some interesting things going forward here from the nature of this eclipse. So I would like everyone to just sort of take a moment there and connect into with this. There's some spiritual lessons that are coming through in this particular eclipse as well. To take a moment to be aware of that in yourself as we get deeper into this eclipse season and towards, you know, of course, we get to June 10th and being also in the Neptune opposition to Neptune there. So there is some, you know, this continues to be a strange time. And I think, it's just natural for us right now to be in this strange land. And our compasses, you know, at times we might get a little clear, you know, there's certainly cycles that are happening that are helping us get clear at times, but it's that trying to get bits and pieces of clarity when you've got a lot of, you know, fog and cloudiness. And then sometimes it opens up and you get a little clarity, but then the fog comes back in and you're not really sure what direction we're supposed to go, or whether something that you're seeing in the fog is totally real or not. Where ideas, you might have like 1,000 ideas, but they might not, you know, only a few may end up manifesting into any kind of reality in the future. So this is that time. It's a pretty remarkable time. So here is where in the night sky, this is where the daytime sky really, where the eclipse will take place over here between the horns of the bull. The star Elnath is up here. You've got Mercury. You can see how close Mercury is. Only a degree just below here the sun. This is a picture if you were up in Eastern Canada area. This is what the sky would look like if the sun wasn't there. So the only thing that would be visible really in any kind of way, I think none of these stars I think would show during a ring eclipse or ring of fire, but Venus might pop out. It's almost at a -4 magnitude, -3.8, 3.9. So a person might be able to spot Venus with good eyes, but otherwise the rest of this wouldn't show up. Now, all of these stars, Castor, Pollux, Capella, Pleiades, and Rigel, not Menkar, but this area here that kind of connects to the bull, to the Orion, and then down into off the screen here is Sirius, the great dog, or Canis Major, the dog star. That's the Lakota Sacred Hoop of Stars, and this was a very powerful. They had a very powerful relationship with this part of the sky, and it was in a literal, almost as above, so below, literal connection into the Black Hills of the sacred areas of their land, or their land that they inhabited. So, and there are books about this that go into that more deeply. But in that sacred hoop, it circles one specific area of the sky, and that's what we call the galactic extreme or galactic edge. This is some astronomers call it the anti-center. It's the area that's sort of the thinnest out there that you leave the galaxy that way. And a lot of cultures looked at that also as the silver gate, where souls, I'm sorry, not leaving the galaxy. Well, you can go leave the galaxy through there, but souls come in through the silver gate into our area, into the planet, into the solar system, into the galaxy. You know, cultures connected to that sort of that story and that mythology. And so we can also connect to it. That's 0 degrees Cancer, and it's a really thin area of stars. But if you're really under, like when you get to the late summer into the fall, you can really see this area much more clearly in the morning and in the middle of the night. And it's highly visible in the late fall into the early winter time. Then as you get into the springtime, it starts to fade away in the glare of the sun. But this is it's a really powerful area of stars, and they each have their own meaning. And there's a lot of prominent stars that are easy to spot, even in areas where there is some light pollution. So again, it's not, those stars won't be visible during this eclipse. I'm just sharing some of the bits of information here about this area of the sky, which is again a really, really powerful. And those stars kind of help orient the person toward the galactic edge or galactic extreme and the silver gate itself. So we can see, you know, Pleiades and Aldebaran, and now Venus is in here as well, and Mercury. And then we get to 0 degrees Cancer, and that's where sort of that gate lies. And in any eclipse, it's we have an eclipse season. So actually, that's that should be the June 10th total, sort of the annual eclipse. That's I got looks like a slide that wasn't fully in there. So that's probably this Mercury retrograde getting things done quickly. But the last time this type of solar eclipse took place was May 31st / June 1st, 2003 at 9 degrees of Gemini. And this is Saros 147. The lunar eclipse that took place on May 26th, that was Saros 121, just to clarify that. So I'll have to make a correction for my notes as well. These Saros are occur over 18-year periods. And they also have a 54-year period where you have a series of 3 where they rotate back to the same area of space and projected upon the Earth. So it'll go back to the same facing of the Earth facing the Moon or the Sun or both, depending on if it's a solar or lunar eclipse. But in this case, there was an annular eclipse in 2003, and 54 years ago in 1967, that was the one Saros 147 where we are coming up here, and that was the one that was in the same sort of around the same time zone, same time frame as the one we're going to have coming up on June 10th. So yeah, a little note to correct that date on there on that second paragraph there. Okay, well, thank you all. This is just a brief look at the annular solar eclipse, and you can I write articles and I do videos. You can see those also on inspiralnexus.com. And you can also visit shamanicastrology.com, where Daniel G. Mario created Shamanic Astrology. That's where I got my the vast majority of my initial education. Also the co-founded by Kaylin Castell, and I'm continuing to learn through other ways and other nuggets, golden nuggets of wisdom from other astrologers and other books. So I'm available for readings and classes, and you can do astrocartography and events. And I'll be traveling to Austin, Texas in July of 2021 to do my first holistic fair of the year between 17th and 18th. And so I'll be there for a week and available to do readings out there as well. So thank you all for tuning into this. And I look forward to seeing you again or doing this again in the very near future, and coming up episode 22 and beyond. And I hope you have a fabulous eclipse season, and dream well out there.